Have you ever wondered, my dears, if the people you've known your entire life are truly who they say they are? If the very foundation of your identity could crumble in a single afternoon, revealing that everything you believed about yourself was carefully constructed fiction. Some secrets are buried so deep, wrapped in so many layers of protection and love, that when they finally surface, they don't just change your present, they rewrite your entire past. I've learned that family isn't always what we think it is. Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary, something we see every day, but never really see. And when that truth finally reveals itself, it doesn't come gently. It crashes through your life like a freight train, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 74 years old now, and this story happened in 1968, though its roots go back much further than that. Before I continue, my dears, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Your support means the world to this old grandmother. In 1968, I was a 20-year-old newlywed living in Asherton, a small mill town in northern England where everyone knew everyone else's business, or so we thought. The streets still had gas lamps on the corners, and Mrs. Henderson's bakery filled the square with the smell of fresh bread every morning at 5 o'clock sharp. You know, it was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked and children played in the streets until the church bells rang at sunset. That I had married Thomas right that spring, a good man who worked as a foreman at the textile mill. We had a modest terraced house on Chestnut Street with a blue door that I'd painted myself, and a small garden where I grew roses and tomatoes. My mother, the woman I called mother, had helped me choose the wallpaper for our bedroom, yellow with tiny white flowers. My father worked at the post office and played dominoes every Thursday at the Swan. My older sister Catherine lived in London, working as a secretary for a law firm. She came home for Christmas and Easter, always bringing expensive chocolates in gold boxes and wearing fashionable clothes. That made the town women whisper. Life was simple and beautiful, my dears. Thomas and I were trying for a baby. I worked part-time at the library, stamping books and helping old Mr. Cranston organize the children's section. On Sundays, we had roast dinner with my parents. Mother's Yorkshire puddings were legendary. Everything was exactly as it should be in a proper English life. But looking back now, I can see the cracks I missed. The way Mother sometimes looked at me with such profound sadness when she thought I wasn't watching. How Catherine always seemed uncomfortable during family gatherings, smoking cigarette after cigarette by the window, her jaw tight. The photographs in our house that stopped when I was about 2 years old. No baby pictures, no christening photos, nothing from my earliest years. When I asked about it, Mother would say they'd been lost in a flood in the cellar. Her voice strange and hollow. The first real red flag came that June when Catherine visited unexpectedly on a Tuesday. Who visits on a Tuesday, my dears? She looked terrible thin, with dark circles under her eyes, and she kept wringing her hands like Lady Macbeth. She stayed in her old room and barely spoke to anyone. I tried to talk to her, but she'd just stare out the window at the rain and smoke those awful Benson and Hedges cigarettes until the room was thick with haze. Are you in some kind of trouble? I asked her one evening. She laughed, a bitter sound. You have no idea, Maggie, no idea at all. Mother was even stranger during that visit. She and Catherine would have hushed conversations that stopped the moment I entered a room. Father seemed oblivious, buried in his newspapers and his dominoes. But I could feel something poisonous brewing in that house. Then there were the letters. I found one in the dustbin. I wasn't snooping, my dears. I was just taking out the rubbish and I saw it was addressed to Catherine at our parents' house. But the envelope had been torn open and then carefully burned at the edges, as if someone had tried to destroy it but couldn't quite finish. The return address said St. Mary's Home for Unwed Mothers, Southampton, 1948. 1948. I was born in 1948. Little did I know that this scrap of burned paper would unlock a door I never knew existed. I mentioned it casually to Mother that evening. Found an old letter in the bin. Something about an unwed mother's home. The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. She grabbed the edge of the kitchen table, her knuckles white. That's old rubbish from the church charity drive. Nothing important, but her hands were shaking, my dears, shaking so badly she couldn't pick up her teacup. That night, I heard them arguing. My parents never argued, not in 20 years of my life had I heard raised voices in that house. But that night, through the thin walls, I heard Father's voice, angry and desperate. We promised. Elizabeth, we gave our word. It's been 20 years. And Mother, sobbing, she deserves to know. Catherine can't live with it anymore. Look at her. John, she's destroying herself. We made a choice. For the best. For everyone. I couldn't sleep. Thomas snored beside me, peaceful and unaware, while my mind raced through memories, through all those strange moments that suddenly didn't seem so random anymore. The next morning, I confronted Catherine. I found her packing her suitcase, moving quickly, desperately, like someone fleeing a burning building. You're my mother, aren't you? The words came out before I could stop them. Just like that. Raw and terrible. She dropped the blouse she was folding. Her face crumpled, and she sank onto the bed like a puppet with cut strings. Oh God, Maggie, tell me the truth, please. And so she did, my dears, right there in that small bedroom with the faded wallpaper. She told me everything. She'd been 15 years old, 15, when she got pregnant. A boy from school, a boy who disappeared the moment he found out. This was 1947, and in those days, an unwed teenage mother was a scandal that could destroy an entire family. The shame was considered worse than death. So my grandparents, the people I'd called mother, and father sent Catherine away to a home for unwed mothers in Southampton. They told everyone she'd gone to stay with an aunt to help with her invalid cousin. Catherine gave birth to me in February 1948 in a cold, sterile room where the nuns treated the girls like fallen women who deserved their suffering. She held me for 1 hour 60 minutes that she'd memorized like a prayer before my grandparents took me and brought me home as their own, their miracle late life baby, a gift from God. She was made to sign papers, adoption papers, giving up all rights to me. She was told it was for the best, that she could go back to school, have a real life, that I would have a proper family. She was told to forget, to move on, to never speak of it. But how could I forget? Catherine whispered, tears streaming down her face. Every birthday, every Christmas, watching you grow up calling me sister, watching Mum asterisk or asterisk Mum raise you, watching you love her the way you should have loved me. I was 15, Maggie, 15, and they took you from me and told me to pretend it never happened. I felt like I was floating above my own body, watching this scene from outside myself. The walls of the room seemed to tilt and breathe. 20 years of my life, my entire identity, had just been rewritten in 5 minutes. Who else knows? My voice sounded strange, distant, just the 3 of us. And Father Morris, he helped arrange everything. The adoption was private, unofficial. Your birth certificate, they falsified it. Mum's name is on it as your mother. They paid someone at the registry office. It was easier in those days, especially in small towns where everyone knew everyone. Father Morris, the beloved parish priest who'd known me my entire life, who'd prepared me for confirmation, who'd married Thomas and me just 3 months earlier. He'd known. He'd known and smiled at me every Sunday, blessing me with hands that had helped steal my truth. I don't remember leaving that room. I don't remember what I said to Thomas when I went home, though he told me later I was white as a sheet and couldn't stop crying. The next few days are a blur of horror and grief, and rage so consuming I thought it would burn me alive from the inside out. But here's what I do remember. My dears, I remember going to see Father Morris. I found him in the rectory on a Thursday afternoon, sitting at his desk with a glass of sherry, working on his Sunday sermon. He looked up when I entered, and I saw the knowledge in his eyes. He knew why I was there, Margaret. He said quietly, "Please, sit down. Don't tell me to sit down." My voice was shaking. "How could you? How could all of you do this to me, to her?" He took off his glasses, suddenly looking very old. "We thought it was for the best. Your grandmother Elizabeth, she was devastated that she couldn't give your grandfather another child. Catherine was so young, her whole life ahead of her, and you needed a stable home to parents. It seemed like God's solution to an impossible situation." "God's solution? You falsified documents. You stole my identity. You let me grow up believing a lie to protect you." "No." I slammed my hand on his desk, and the sherry glass jumped. "To protect them asterisk. To protect the family reputation. To sweep away an inconvenient teenage pregnancy. You didn't do this for me, you did it so Catherine could go back to school and pretend nothing happened, so my grandparents could have the daughter they wanted, so no one would gossip at the bakery or the post office. Margaret, please, my name feels like a lie. My birth certificate is a lie. My mother is my sister. My parents are my grandparents. Every family photo, every story about my childhood contaminated with lies. And you blessed it all, Father. You stood at the altar and preached about truth and honesty, and you knew. You've known for 20 years. He had no answer for that. What could he say, my dears? I left him sitting there with his sherry and his sermon about living righteously, and I walked out of that church knowing I would never return. The aftermath was devastating in ways I couldn't have imagined. Thomas tried to be supportive, but he was a simple man who believed in straightforward things: work, marriage, duty. He didn't know what to do with a wife who just discovered her entire life was fiction. He'd say things like, "At least you were loved, and does it really change anything?" As if identity and truth were trivial concerns. I told him, "It changes everything Catherine went back to London the day after our confrontation and barely spoke to me for months. She sent one letter, 6 pages of apologies and explanations and her own pain. But reading it just made me angry all over again. She'd known for 20 years. Every time she visited, every Christmas morning, every birthday card signed love, Catherine, she'd known and said nothing. My mother Elizabeth, the woman who'd raised me, tried desperately to explain, to justify. We did what we thought was right. We loved you so much, Maggie. You were our miracle. I was Catherine's baby. You stole me. We saved you from a life of shame. Do you know what happens to bastard children? The names they're called? The doors close to them. We gave you a normal life. You gave me a lie. The people in Asherton found out. Of course, small towns are like that. My dear's secrets seep through the walls like damp. Mrs. Henderson at the bakery heard it from her sister, who worked at the rectory. By July, everyone knew. The whispers followed me everywhere. Can you imagine passing off your daughter's baby as your own? That poor Catherine, having to watch her child call her sister. But what kind of girl gets pregnant at 15? Must be bad blood. And Margaret, did you see her face? She looks completely mad. I lost my job at the library. Mr. Cranston said it was budget cuts. But I knew the truth. He was on the church council with Father Morris. Thomas's mother stopped inviting us to Sunday dinner. Women I'd known my whole life would cross the street to avoid me. I was contaminated by scandal, even though I'd done nothing wrong. Or maybe I'd done the worst thing possible. I'd exposed the truth that everyone had conspired to bury. Thomas and I fought constantly. He wanted me to let it go, to move forward. He didn't understand that you can't move forward when the ground beneath you has disappeared. By September, he'd moved into the spare bedroom. By November, he'd moved out entirely, going to stay with his brother in Manchester. He sent divorce papers in January 1969. "You're not the woman I married," he wrote in the note that came with the papers. "That woman is gone, and I don't know who you are anymore." Maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't that woman anymore. Maybe I'd never been her at all. I was 21 years old, divorced, living in the house Thomas had left behind. He let me keep it guilt money, I suppose, and completely alone. My father, my grandfather, John had died of a heart attack in October, and part of me wondered if the stress of the exposed secret had killed him. Elizabeth withdrew into herself, barely speaking, aging 10 years in 6 months. Catherine stayed in London. I had no one. I needed to survive, my dears. Survival doesn't wait for you to finish grieving. I started washing clothes for people, taking in laundry, and ironing. My hands, which had been soft from library work, became rough and chapped, cracked and bleeding in the winter. I'd scrub shirts in the big sink until my back ached, hang them on lines in the tiny garden, press them with a heavy iron heated on the stove. The smell of starch and steam became the smell of my life. I also started baking. Elizabeth had taught me whatever else she'd done. She'd taught me that, and I made biscuits and cakes and scones. I'd walk through town with a basket, selling them door to door. Some people bought them out of pity. Some bought them because they were delicious. I didn't care which. As long as I could pay the electric bill. Mrs. Cromwell, an old woman who lived alone on the edge of town, hired me to clean her house twice a week. She was the first person who treated me like a human being instead of a scandal. She'd make me tea after I finished scrubbing her floors and say, "You're a strong girl, Margaret. Stronger than they give you credit for." Those words kept me going, my dears. Such a simple thing. But I held onto them like a lifeline. The physical toll was brutal. I was exhausted all the time. Dark circles under my eyes. My clothes hanging loose because I couldn't afford to eat properly. I'd cry sometimes while washing. Clothes. Silent tears falling into the soapy water where no one could see them. At night, I'd lie in bed with my aching hands and wonder what my life would have been if they'd told me the truth from the beginning. If Catherine had been allowed to be my mother. If I'd grown up knowing who I really was. But dwelling on what ifs doesn't feed you, my dears. It doesn't keep the roof over your head. Slowly, so slowly, I barely noticed things began to improve. Word spread that my baking was excellent. I started getting orders for birthday cakes and wedding biscuits. I expanded from door to door. Sales to taking orders. I bought a used bicycle and delivered treats all over Asherton and the neighboring villages by 1970. I was making enough to live on without having to take in laundry. My hands began to heal. I rented a small shop space on a side street nothing. Fancy, just a room with a window and an oven, and officially became Maggie's Bakery. The sign was hand-painted by a local boy who charged me almost nothing. I also started tutoring children in reading and mathematics. It turned out that being the town scandal made me perfect for working with the children who struggled, the ones other tutors didn't want to bother with, the troublemakers, the slow learners, the children from poor families. They didn't judge me, and I didn't judge them. We understood each other. By 1972. I had 3 steady days of tutoring appointments and a bakery that opened 5 days a week. I'd wake at 4 in the morning to bake, open the shop at 8, tutor in the afternoons, bake again in the evenings for the next day. It was exhausting, but it was mine. I was building something real, something honest. The turning point came in the summer of 1973, during the village fete. Every year, Asherton held a festival in the square with music and games and food stalls. I'd never attended after my divorce. I couldn't bear the stares and whispers. But that year, Mrs. Cromwell insisted I set up a stall for my bakery. "You've been hiding long enough, Margaret. Time to show them what you're made of." So I did. I set up my little table with my cakes and biscuits and scones, my hands shaking, expecting to be ignored or mocked. Mrs. Patterson, the mayor's wife, walked past with her entourage of church ladies, the same women who'd crossed the street to avoid me for 5 years. She stopped in front of my stall, looked at my display, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I suppose desperation makes us all do things we'd rather not." Selling cakes in the street like a common peddler. The words hit me like a slap. I felt my face burning, felt the old shame rising up to choke me. People were staring, waiting to see what I'd do. Would I slink away? Would I cry? I looked Mrs. Patterson in her cold, righteous eyes, and something inside me hardened into steel. "Yes," I said clearly, "I sell cakes. I also tutor children that your fancy school teachers have given up on. I work from 4 in the morning until 9 at night. I pay my own rent, buy my own food, and answer to no one. Can you say the same, Mrs. Patterson? Or are you still living off your husband's money and your parents' name, contributing nothing to this town but gossip and cruelty?" The silence that followed was absolute. My dears, you could have heard a pin drop in that square dot. Mrs. Patterson's face went purple. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish, then turned and stalked away, her church ladies fluttering after her like anxious birds. And then Mrs. Cromwell, bless her soul, started clapping, slow, deliberate applause. Then Mr. Henderson from the butcher shop joined in, then the postman, then more people, until half the square was clapping, and people were coming to my stall, buying everything I had, telling me how proud they were of me, how brave. I sold out in an hour. My dears, every last biscuit, every cake, every scone, and I stood there with my empty baskets and my full cash box and cried for the first time in years. But this time they were tears of triumph. Things changed after that. Not overnight. Real change never happens overnight, but steadily, like a tide coming in. My bakery grew. I hired 2 assistants, then moved to a larger shop on the main street. I started supplying biscuits to restaurants in neighboring towns. By 1978, Maggie's Bakery was known throughout the region. I'd done it. My dears, I'd built a real business from nothing but determination and my grandmother's recipes. The tutoring continued too. I worked with dozens of children over the years, many of them from difficult homes or with learning difficulties. Several went on to university, something that would never have happened without extra help. They'd come back to visit me, these successful young adults, and thank me for believing in them. That meant more than any amount of money ever could. Catherine and I eventually reconciled. It took years, almost a decade, but slowly, painfully, we built something new. Not a mother-daughter relationship exactly, but not sisterhood either. Something unique to us, forged from truth and pain and forgiveness. She never married, never had other children. Sometimes I wonder if the guilt and grief made it impossible for her. We have lunch together once a month now, here in my sitting room, and sometimes we talk about the past, but mostly we talk about the present. That's healthier. I think Elizabeth, my mother, my grandmother, I still don't know what to call her, lived until 1985. We made our peace before she died. Though it was complicated, she held my hand in the hospital and whispered, "I loved you, Maggie. Whatever else was wrong, I loved you." And I believed her. Love and mistakes can exist in the same heart, my dears. That's one of life's hardest truths. I never remarried. A few men showed interest over the years, but I'd learned to be self-sufficient, and I liked it. I didn't need someone to complete me. I was already holed up by the mid-1980s. My bakery employed 12 people and had become something of an institution. I'd bought the building, expanded into the space next door, added a small cafe. The Queen's Jubilee Committee asked me to provide cakes for the celebration the scandal of Asherton, providing cakes for a royal celebration. I wanted to laugh at the irony. In 1989, I was named Businesswoman of the Year for our region. They gave me a crystal plaque at a ceremony in a fancy hotel in Manchester. I wore a blue dress I'd bought specially, and I gave a speech about resilience and second chances. People stood up and applauded. Me, the girl everyone had pitied and whispered about. Who would have thought, my dears, who would have thought that the worst moment of my life would become the foundation for my greatest triumph? My children, the students I tutored, have done wonderfully. There's Timothy, who couldn't read until he was 12, who's now a solicitor in London. Sarah, who everyone said was simple, who became a nurse and works in pediatrics. James, who was so angry and troubled, who joined the RAF and became an engineer. Dozens of others scattered across the country, living good lives. They send me cards at Christmas, and some still visit. I have grandchildren now, two not biological ones, perhaps, but the children of my former students who bring their little ones to visit Grandma Maggie. They climb on my lap and ask for stories, and I tell them about the bakery, about working hard and being brave. I don't tell them everything, of course. That's not appropriate for small children. But someday, when they're older, I'll tell them the truth about my life. Because I've learned, my dears, that truth, however painful, is always better than the most beautiful lie. I'm 74 years old now, and my hands are gnarled with arthritis from all those years of hard work. My bakery is run by my longtime assistant, Martha, though I still go in most mornings to supervise and chat with customers. I live in a comfortable cottage on the edge of Asherton, with a proper garden full of roses and a cat named Biscuit who keeps me company. Looking back now, I can see the shape of my life with clarity that was impossible when I was living it. That terrible discovery in 1968, finding out my sister was my mother, destroyed the person I thought I was. But it also freed me to become someone stronger, someone I'm actually proud of. Would I wish for it to have happened differently? Of course. Would I wish they'd told me from the beginning? Absolutely. The lies damaged all of us, me, Catherine, Elizabeth, even Father Morris, who died alone and haunted by his role in the deception. But I survived, my dears. More than survived, I built a life that was truly mine, not handed to me or constructed from someone else's shame and secrets. I learned that identity isn't just what you're born with or what you're told. It's what you build with your own hands, day by day, choice by choice. I learned that scandal and suffering don't define you unless you let them. That people who judge you in your lowest moment aren't worth your worry. That the only approval you need is your own. I learned that families are complicated. That people make terrible decisions out of fear and love and desperation. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean releasing the poison so it stops killing you from the inside. Most of all, I learned that you are stronger than you know. When everything falls apart, when your whole world crumbles, when the truth burns away everything you thought was real, you can survive it. You can build something new from the ashes. You can become someone you're proud to be. The woman I am now, the businesswoman, the tutor, the friend, the survivor. She was born in that horrible moment when Catherine told me the truth. The old Maggie, the obedient library worker who believed what she was told and never questioned anything. She died that day, and maybe that's not entirely a bad thing. My dears, maybe sometimes we need to break completely before we can rebuild ourselves properly. Thomas died last year. By the way, his second wife left him. His children from that marriage barely spoke to him, and he died alone in a nursing home in Manchester. I went to the funeral not out of lingering love, but because I believe in honoring what was good in our relationship, brief as it was. His brother thanked me for coming and said Thomas had regretted leaving me, that he'd realized too late that life's difficulties are when we most need to stand together, not apart. I didn't say anything to that. Some lessons come too late to matter. That Father Morris died in 1980. I didn't go to that funeral. Some forgiveness has limits. My DEARS. Mrs. Patterson is still alive, ancient and bitter, living in the nursing home on the edge of town. I sometimes send over biscuits for the residents, not for her specifically, just for everyone. That's the difference between us. You see, I learned to let go of cruelty. She never did. So here I am, my dears, an old woman with arthritic hands and a cat and a successful business and a complicated family and a past full of secrets and pain and triumph. Life is messy and beautiful and tragic and wonderful, all mixed together like ingredients in a cake. You can't separate the sweet from the bitter. They bake together to create something complete. If you're going through something hard right now, if your life has fallen apart, if you've discovered terrible truths, if you feel like you're drowning, please know this. You can survive it. You might not believe me now, but you'll see. One day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, you'll survive. And more than that, you'll build something new, something honest, something yours. The scars will always be there. I still sometimes wake up in the night thinking about that day Catherine told me the truth, feeling that same vertigo, that same sense of falling through space. But scars are proof that you survived the wound. They're nothing to be ashamed of. Be brave, my dears. Be strong, be honest. And when life tears everything away from you, remember, you still have yourself. And sometimes that's enough to start rebuilding. Thank you for listening to me today. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next stories. Share with someone who might be needing a little hope. Where are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. God bless you all, my dears. Keep going. You're stronger than you know.